Hello, and sorry for the interruption, but as of last time, of course, I am not a voice actor. I am not going to be perfect. I am going to stutter a whole bunch. And I have a bad attention span, and I'm going to mess up some words, probably. And the grammar in Warrior Cats isn't perfect. I didn't mispronounce any of them. If I did, I went back and said the right term. But that's just how Warrior Cats had it typed out. I muted my friend this time, so you didn't hear their audio. I read chapters 2 through 4 this time. I hope you enjoy, and I'm sorry for the interruption. Okay, am I recording? Okay, I am recording. Chapter 2 of Fire and Ice. Blue Star halted on the edge of the clearing with her clan lined up beside her. Some of the cats from River Clan and Shadow Clan turned and acknowledged their arrival. Where'd you disappear to? Graystripe appeared at Fireheart's shoulder. Fireheart shook his head. Doesn't matter. He was still troubled and confused by his conversation with Blue Star and felt glad when Graystripe didn't press him, turning his head instead to peer around the clearing. Hey, look, he meowed. The Shadow Clan cats are looking stronger than I thought they would after all. Broken Star left them half-starved. Firestar followed his gaze to a sleek Shadow Clan warrior. You're right, he agreed, surprised. Mind you, we do most of their fighting for them, scoffed Graystripe. Firestar's purr was amused, interrupted by White Storm. The Shadow Clan cats fought hard as we did to chase out Broken Star. We should honor their determination to recover. He meowed sternly before padding over to a group of warriors gathered beneath one of the great oaks. Oops, mewed Graystripe with a guilty glance at Fireheart. The young warriors stayed on the edge of the clearing. Fireheart could easily pick out the apprentices from the other clans. Their fur looked soft, their faces round, and their paws plump and clumsy. Two warriors approached Graystripe and Fireheart. A small brown apprentice tagged after him. Fireheart recognized the gray tabby Tom from Shadow Clan, but he did not recognize the smoky black Tom who walked past him. Hi, meowed the gray Tom. Hello, Wetfoot, replied Fireheart as he glanced at the dark brown cat. Wetfoot meowed. This is Black Claw of River Clan. Graystripe and Fireheart nodded their greeting. The apprentice timidly stepped forward. And this is my apprentice, Oakpaw, added Wetfoot. Oakpaw looked up at Fireheart with wide, anxious eyes. Hi, Fireheart, he mewed. Fireheart nodded his head in greeting. I hear Blue Star made you warriors after the battle, mewed Wetfoot. Congratulations. It must have been a cold vigil. It was, Graystripe agreed. Who's that? Fireheart broke in. A sleek she-cat with a mottled brown pelt caught his attention. She was sharing words with Tiger Claw beside the great rock that stood in the center of the clearing. That's Leopard Fur, our deputy, growled the River Clan warrior. Fireheart's fur stiffened as he thought about the previous River Clan deputy, Oakheart, and how he had died in battle with ThunderClan. He was saved from having to say anything by Blue Star's bounding on to the top of the rock to start the meeting. The two other cats joined her. One of them, an elderly black Tom, sounded the call for all cats to gather beneath the rock. Fireheart recognized the black Tom and couldn't help feeling surprised. Had old Nightpelt become Shadow Clan's leader since Broken Star had fled? When the cats had settled in front of the great rock, Blue Star spoke. ThunderClan brings to this gathering its new medicine cat, 𝓑𝓼', she announced formally. She paused while all eyes turned to the old she-cat with the thick fur and flattened muzzle. Fireheart noticed her shuffle her haunches on the hard ground. Early in his apprenticeship, he had spent almost a whole moon nursing the she-cat back to health after she had came to the ThunderClan camp. Now, he could tell by the way her right ear twisted slightly that she was uncomfortable under the gaze of the other clans. 𝓑𝓼 had been the medicine cat to ShadowClan, and cats hardly ever left one clan to join another. She looked around the crowd slowly until she met the gaze of Running Nose, ShadowClan's new medicine cat. There was a brief pause, then they exchanged a respectful nod. 𝓑𝓼's ears straightened and Fireheart relaxed. Bluestar spoke again. We also bring two new named warriors, Fireheart and Graystripe. Fireheart held his head high as he felt all eyes turn to look at him. A surge of self-confidence made his tail flick nervously. Nightpelt stepped forward, brushing past Bluestar to stand on the highest part of the rock. I, Nightpelt, have taken over the leadership of ShadowClan, he announced. Our former leader, Broken Star, broke the warrior code. We were forced to chase him out. No mention of the fact we helped them do it, Graystripe whispered to Fireheart. Nightpelt continued. The spirits of our ancestors have spoken to Running Nose and chosen me as leader. I have not yet traveled to Mothermouth to receive StarClan's gift of 9 lives, but I will make the journey tomorrow night while the moon is still full. After my vigil at the Moonstone, I shall be known as Nightstar. Where is Broken Star now? Called a voice from the crowd. It was Phosphor, the White ThunderClan Queen. I think we can assume that he has left the forest with the other banished warriors. He knows it would be dangerous for him to try to return, answered Nightpelt. I hope so. Fireheart heard Phosphor murmur to her neighbor, a plump brown queen. RiverClan's leader, Crooked Star, stepped forward. Let's hope Broken Star had the sense to leave the forest for good. His greed for territory threatened us all. Crooked Star waited for yells of agreement to die down before he went on. While Broken Star was ShadowClan's leader, I allowed him to hunt in our river, but now ShadowClan has a new leader, and this agreement can no longer stand. The prey in the river belongs to RiverClan alone. Mews of triumph rose from the other RiverClan cats, but Fireheart saw with a feeling of alarm that Nightpelt was bristling. Nightpelt raised his voice. ShadowClan had the same needs as it did under Broken Star. We have many mouths to feed, Crooked Star. You made an agreement with the whole of ShadowClan. Crooked Star leapt to his paws and turned on Nightpelt. He flattened his ears and hissed. The cats below fell silent. Quickly, Bluestar stepped between the two leaders. ShadowClan has suffered too many losses recently, she mewed softly. With fewer mouths to feed, Nightpelt, do you really need RiverClan's fish? Crooked Star hissed again, but Nightpelt held his gaze without flinching. Bluestar spoke again, this time more forcefully. You have just driven out your leader and several of your strongest warriors. And Broken-Star went against the warrior code when he forced Crooked-Star to share the river. Fireheart swallowed uneasily as he noticed Nightpelt unsheath his claws, but Bluestar didn't blink. Her icy blue gaze glinted in the moonlight as she growled. Remember, you have not yet received your 9 lives from StarClan. Are you so confident you can make these demands? Fireheart tensed as he felt the bristling of fur around him. The whole crowd was waiting for Nightpelt's response. Nightpelt looked away angrily. His tail flicked from side to side, but he said nothing. Bluestar had won. Her voice softened. We all know ShadowClan has suffered much these past few moons, she meowed. ThunderClan has agreed to leave you in peace until you have had time to recover. She turned her gaze on Crooked-Star. I'm sure that Crooked-Star will agree to show you the same respect. Crooked-Star narrowed his eyes and nodded, but only as long as ShadowClan is not centered in our territory, he growled. Fireheart relaxed, letting the fur lie flat on his shoulders. Now he knew what it was like to fight in a real battle. He admired his leader's courage even more in challenging these two great warriors. Muffled mews of relief and agreement sounded in the crowd as the tension on High Rock suddenly eased. "You won't scent us, Crooked Star," meowed Night Pelt. "Blue Star was right. We don't need your fish. After all, we have the uplands to hunt in now that Wind Clan has left its territory." Crooked Star looked at Night Pelt, his eyes brightening. "That's true," he agreed. "This will need extra prey for all of us." Blue Star drew up her head sharply. "No, Wind Clan must return." Crooked Star and Night Pelt looked at the Thunder Clan leader. "Why?" asked Crooked Star. "If we share Wind Clan's hunting grounds, it will mean more food for all our kids," Night Pelt pointed out. "The forest needs four clans," Blue Star insisted. "Just as we have four trees and four seasons, Star Clan has given us four clans. We must find Wind Clan as soon as possible and bring them home." The ThunderClan cats raised their voices in support of their leader, but Crooked Star's impatient yowl rose above them. "Your argument is weak, Blue Star. Do we really need four seasons? Wouldn't you rather go without Leaf Bear and the cold and hunger it brings?" Blue Star looked calmly at the warriors beside her. "StarClan gave us Leaf Bear to let Earth recover and prepare for new Leaf. This forest and the uplands have supported four clans for generations. It is not up to us to challenge StarClan." Leopard Fur, the River Clan deputy, spoke up. "Why should we go hungry for the sake of a clan that cannot defend in its territory?" she yowled. "Blue Star is right. Wind Clan must return." Tiger Claw spat back, drawing himself up so he towered above the cats around him. Blue Star spoke again. "Crooked Star," she meowed, turning to the River Clan leader. "River Clan's hunting grounds are known for their richness. You have the river and all the fish it contains. Why do you need extra prey?" Crooked Star looked away and didn't answer. Fireheart noticed how River Clan murmured anxiously among themselves. He wondered why Blue Star's question had ruffled their fur. "And Night Pelt," Blue Star went on. "It was Broken Star who drove River Clan from its home." The broad-shouldered she-cat paused. "That is why ThunderClan helped you to chase him out." Fireheart narrowed his eyes. He knew that Blue Star was gently reminding Night Pelt of the debt he owed to ThunderClan. The Shadow Clan leader half closed his eyes after a silence that felt like an age. Night Pelt opened his eyes wide and mewed. "Very well, Blue Star. We will allow Wind Clan to return." Fireheart saw Crooked Star turn his head away in anger, his eyes black slits. Blue Star nodded. "The two of us have agreed, Crooked Star," she meowed. "Wind Clan must be found and brought home. Until then, no clan should hunt in their territory." The gathering began to break up as the cats prepared to travel back to their camps. Fireheart stayed where he was for a moment, watching the leaders on the great rock. Blue Star touched noses with Crooked Star and jumped down to the forest floor. On the rock, Crooked Star turned to Night Pelt. There was something about the look that passed between them that made Fireheart's fur prickle. Could it be that Blue Star did not really have Night Pelt's support after all? Fireheart looked quickly around. He could tell from the anger in Tiger Claw's eyes that ThunderClan's deputy had not missed this exchange either. For once, Fireheart shared Tiger Star's concern. This was a shift in clan alliances he had not expected. After the risk ThunderClan had taken by helping Shadow Clan to drive out Broken Star, how could it side with River Clan now? Chapter 3 of Fire and Ice. Blue Star had led the way swiftly back to camp. The noise of their return awoke the cats who had remained behind. As the group steamed through the gorse entrance, sleepy figures began emerging from the dens. "What's the news?" called Halftail. "Was 𝓑𝓼 there?" asked Willowpelt. "Yes, it was," Bluestar replied gravely. She strode past Willowpelt and leapt up onto High Rock. There was no need for her customary call for a clan meeting. The cats were already gathered below the rock. Tigerstar jumped up beside her. There was much tension between the clans tonight, Bluestar began, and I have become aware of a possible new allegiance between Crooked Star and Nightpelt. Graystripe squeezed into the small space next to Fireheart. "What are they talking about?" he asked. "I thought Nightpelt agreed with Bluestar." "Nightpelt," croaked One Eye's ancient voice from the back of the crowd. "He has been named as 𝓑𝓼's new leader," Bluestar explained, "but his name hasn't been accepted by StarClan yet," asked One Eye. "He plans to travel to the Moonstone tomorrow night," Tigerclaw told him. "No leader can speak for their clan at a gathering without receiving StarClan's approval first," muttered One Eye loudly enough for all the cats to hear. "He has the support of 𝓑𝓼, One Eye answered Bluestar, nodding at the old she-cat. "We cannot ignore what he said tonight." One Eye gave a disgruntled sniff, and Bluestar lifted her head to address the whole clan. "At the gathering, I suggested we find WindClan and bring it home. But Crooked Star and Nightpelt didn't want them to return. They are hardly likely to join forces, are they?" called Graystripe. "They almost had a scrap over hunting rights in the river." Fireheart turned to his friend. "Didn't you see the looks they were swapping by the end of the meeting? They're both desperate to get their paws in WindClan's territory." "But why?" asked Sandpaw, who was sitting beside her mentor, Whitestorm. Whitestorm answered her. "I suspect 𝓑𝓼 is not as weak as we thought it would be, and Nightpelt seems to have more ambition than any cat expected." "But why does RiverClan want to hunt WindClan's grounds? They have always grown fat on the fish from their precious river," yowled Willowpelt. "The uplands are a long way to go for a few wind-blown rabbits." The once beautiful Queen Dampletel spoke up in a voice that cracked with age. At the gathering, some of the RiverClan elders spoke of Two Legs taking over part of their river. "That's right," added Phosphor. "They say Two Legs have been living in shelters beside the river, disturbing the fish. The RiverClan cats have had to hide in the bushes and watch with empty stomachs." Bluestar looked thoughtful. "For now we must be careful to do nothing that may bring 𝓑𝓼 and RiverClan closer together. Go on. Rest now. Running Wind and Dustpaw, you will take the dawn patrol." A cold breeze rattled the dying leaves in the trees overhead. The cats, still murmuring amongst themselves, went to their dens. For the second night in a row, Fireheart dreamed. He was standing in the dark. The roar and stench of a thunder path was very close by. Fireheart felt himself buffeted and blinded by the monsters that roared up and down with glaring eyes. Suddenly, through the din, Fireheart heard the pitiful cry of a young cat. The desperate wail sliced through the thundering of monsters. Fireheart woke with a start. For a moment he thought that the cry had woken him, but the only noise was muffled snores of warriors sleeping beside him. A low growl came from somewhere in the middle of the den. It sounded like Tigerclaw. Firepaw felt too unsettled to go back to sleep, so he crept silently out of the den. It was dark. The stars dotting the black sky told him dawn was still far off, with the wail of the young cat echoing in his mind. Fireheart padded over to the nursery. His ears pricked. He could hear paw steps behind the camp wall. He sniffed the air. It was just Darkstripe and Longtail. Fireheart picked up their senses. They guarded ThunderClan's territory. The calm of the sleeping camp soothed Fireheart. Every cat must have nightmares about the Thunderpath, he told himself. He crept back into the den and circled comfortably back into his nest. Graystripe purred briefly in his sleep as Fireheart settled beside him and closed his eyes. Graystripe's nose woke him, prodding his side. "Leave me alone," Fireheart grumbled. "Wake up!" Graystripe hissed. "Why, we're not on patrol," Fireheart complained. "Bluestar wants to see us in her den now." Fuzzy-headed Fireheart scrambled to his paws and followed Graystripe out of the den. The sun was beginning to turn the sky pink, and there was frost on the trees around the camp. The two cats bounded across the clearing to Bluestar's den and announced their arrival with hushed mews. "Enter!" It was Tigerclaw's voice that had answered from behind the draped lichen. Alarm swept through Fireheart as he remembered his conversation with Bluestar on the way to the gathering. Had she told Tigerclaw about his accusation? Graystripe pushed his way into Bluestar's den. Fireheart followed him uneasily. Bluestar was sitting in her nest, her head up and her eyes bright. Tigerclaw stood in the middle of the smooth sandstone floor. Fireheart tried to read his expression, but the great tabby's eyes were cold and steady as always. Bluestar began at once. "Fireheart, Graystripe, I have an important mission for you." "A mission?" Fireheart echoed. Relief and excitement swept away his anxiety. "I want you to find WindClan and bring it back to its territory. Before you get too excited, bear in mind this could be very dangerous." Tigerclaw growled. "We don't know where WindClan has gone, so you will have to follow what's left of their scent, probably into hostile territory. But you've been through WindClan territory when you traveled with me to the Moonstone," Bluestar pointed out. "Their scent will be familiar, as will the two-legged territory beyond the uplands." Will it just be us?" asked Fireheart. "Our other warriors are needed here," meowed Tigerclaw. "Leaf Bear is coming, and we need to gather as much fresh kill as possible." "Many pray poor moons lie ahead." Bluestar nodded. "Tigerclaw will help you prepare for the journey." Fireheart's paws prickled with unease. Bluestar had as much faith in her deputy as ever. Why was Fireheart the only cat in ThunderClan who didn't trust Tigerclaw? "You must leave as soon as possible," Bluestar continued. "Good luck. We'll find them," Graystripe promised, dragging his thoughts back to the journey ahead. Fireheart nodded. Tigerclaw followed them out of Bluestar's den. "You remember how we got to RiverClan territory?" "Oh, yes, Tigerclaw. We were there only—" Fireheart interrupted Graystripe's eager reply. "Only a few moons ago." He meowed quickly. He flashed a warning glare at his friend. Graystripe had almost given away their journey several nights earlier with Ravenpaw. Tigerclaw hesitated. Fireheart held his breath. Had he noticed Graystripe's mistake? "And can you recall WindClan sent?" the deputy meowed. Fireheart sent silent thanks to StarClan. The young warriors nodded, and Fireheart began to picture himself charging through the prickly gorse of the uplands in search of the lost clan. "You will need herbs for strength and to keep your hunger away. Fetch them from Yellowfang before you leave." Tigerclaw paused. "And don't you forget Nightpaw is planning to travel to the Moonstone tonight. Keep well out of his way." "Yes, Tigerclaw," replied Fireheart. "He'll never know we're out there," Graystripe assured him. "As I would expect," meowed Tigerclaw. "Now go." Without another word he turned and bounded away. "He might have wished us good luck," Graystripe complained. "He probably thinks we don't need it," joked Fireheart as they crossed the clearing toward Yellowfang's den. But at the same time he reflected. Tigerclaw seemed to be treating them with as much respect as he would any warrior. Was it possible he wasn't the traitor that Ravenpaw thought? It was still cold despite the rising sun, but neither cat shivered. Fireheart could feel his fur beginning to thicken as the days grew shorter. Yellowfang's den lay at the end of a tunnel under ferns. A large split rock stood in the corner of a small, shaded glade. Spotted Leaf had lived there before Yellowfang. The memory of the gentle tortoiseshell medicine cat tugged at Fireheart's heart. Spotted Leaf had been killed by a Shadow Clan warrior. He missed her desperately. Yellowfang, Graystripe called out, We're coming for traveling. We've come for traveling herbs." The two cats heard a hoarse mew from the shadow in the center of the rock, and Yellowfang squeezed out of the crack. "Where are you two going?" she asked. "We've got to find River Clan and bring it home," Fireheart told her, unable to hide the pride in his voice. "Your first warrior mission," rasped Yellowfang. "Congratulations, I'll fetch the herbs you will need." She returned a few moments later carrying a small bundle of dried leaves in her mouth. "Enjoy," she purred, laying them on the ground. Fireheart and Graystripe chewed obediently on the unappetizing leaves. "Yak," spat Graystripe, "just as bad as last time." Fireheart nodded, screwing up his face. Spotted Leaf had given them the same herbs when they had journeyed with Bluestar to the Moonstone. Graystripe swallowed the last mouthful and nudged Fireheart's shoulder with his nose. "Come on, slow slug, let's get going." "Bye," he called the Yellowfang over his shoulder as he sprinted out of the glade. "Wait for me," meowed Fireheart, chasing after his friend. "Goodbye. Good luck, youngsters." Yellowfang meowed after them. He raced through the tunnel. Fireheart heard the ferns rustling in the morning breeze. They seemed to be whispering, "Good luck, travel safely." Okay, chapter 4. And that will be for tomorrow. Unless I take a break tomorrow, then it would be the day after. I forgot to put the bookmark in my book. That wasn't... Okay, there we are. I was about to say, that wasn't very smart.